Bison Media Zone on WDAY Extra.
And welcome, everybody, a new edition of the Bison Media Zone here on WDAY Extra each and every Wednesday, giving you the up-to-date on what's going on in the world of Bison athletics. We mentioned earlier on Hot Mic today the ending of the Bison basketball season on the men's side. Just heard from Dave Richmond about that as the NDSU men head into what will be an intriguing offseason. The Bison women, of course, had their season, at least for now, come to an end yesterday afternoon in Sioux Falls at the Summit League tournament. If you missed it, we'll show it to you here of the game against South Dakota State. The Jackrabbits, of course, came in as the top seed, winners of 21 in a row against North Dakota State. The Bison were fighting all of that history yesterday and a crowd of over 7,000 people at the Denny Sanford Premier Center. And the Bison, of course, making their first appearance in this Summit League championship game, finally got over the hump there. You could see the excitement and celebration that they had on Monday when they beat Oral Roberts. And then, frankly, how the game started, we'll show it to you. They came out and they looked like they're the looser team. It was South Dakota State that, frankly, looked tight early on in this game. The Bison forced 8 turnovers of South Dakota State in the opening quarter. Elle Evans had a tough couple days. She got into double figures in 2 of the 3 games, but this was not her best weekend, and certainly that's going to be a motivating factor heading into next basketball season. This basket by Heaven Hamling right before the end of the first half, the Bison were only down 2 despite not scoring for 8 minutes in the second quarter. Avery Coonan is a budding, I think, Summit League superstar. She had a big game, big tournament, back-to-back big-time performances, had a double-double in the win over Oral Roberts on Monday, had another big game yesterday. Paige Meyer, though, is something else for South Dakota State. Hit a corner 3 there. Yet going to the fourth quarter, the Bison were only down 3 points in this game. The Jacks had a chance to really put some pressure on. They go up by 5 after that Brooklyn Meyer and 1. But Heaven Hamling refused to let the Bison go away. Hit a 5-0 run of her own to make it a 47-46 game. But 2 bad turnovers by the Bison led directly to SDSU baskets. They go on a 14-0 run in the late stages of this game to put the hammer down. And that was the death knell for NDSU. This Tori Nelson 3 capped off, and the place went nuts to lead the Jacks to a 67-54 win. You see the record, NDSU at 21-11. Obviously, that's the most wins they had in the Division I era. And now the real questions on what happens beyond that, which we're going to get to in just a second. We didn't have a chance. I want to play some audio from the press conference yesterday. You'll listen to this and watch this. After the game, Jory Collins and Heaven Hamling, both emotional about their time, hoping it's not over yet, which we'll get to later in the show, but also about where this team has come. I mentioned it earlier that 5 years ago, Jory Collins was hired. Team wasn't even at the Summit League tournament. Now they played for the championship. This is from yesterday's post-game press conference.
We're getting close, Mike. I mean, I feel great about our team. When the kids that we have coming back, the kids that we have coming in, our ability to go recruit now. I told them in the locker room, I mean, this is what the expectation is. Once you get here, we need to be planning on spending 4 or 5 nights in Sioux Falls every March. We're going to play in this game again. We're going to play in it a bunch of times. And eventually we're going to kick the door down and we're going to go to the tournament. And we're going to try to do it again. That's what the job is. That's what I came here to do. And we'll get it done. It sucks every time it doesn't happen. But there's nothing else you can do but go back to work.
And it's emotional for me, obviously. But Jory's always looked at me as a leader. But in all reality, he's been my leader for 4 or 5 years. And me coming in and just playing with a chip on my shoulder, I hope that I left a mark for all the rest of these guys, for the commits that are coming. I just hope that you play like I would play, with my heart every single time. And I can't thank everyone enough. Matt Larson, Colleen, everyone, all the admin, all the fans. I hope I touched a little girl, an admin, a fan, a family in some sort of way. And I hope that they remember NDSU women's basketball. I know I'll be forgot about in a few years, but I just hope that I left my mark and put NDSU on the uprise.
How badly is this hurt seeing Heaven's emotions, that how badly she wanted this here today?
Yeah, I mean, I love Heaven, and I always will. We're going to be great friends the rest of our lives. We're very similar people, and we get along great. She's on my Mount Rushmore of kids I've gotten to coach, just because she's the fiery kind of competitor you just love to have on your team and in your gym. And she plays with a chip. She wanted this as bad as anybody. She might be the only player I've ever had that wants to win as bad as I do. And I'm just proud to be able to say I got to coach her and be part of her career. When she's up here talking about leaving a legacy, I don't think anybody's going to forget about Heaven in 3 years. I know she touched a lot of young kids at our camps that came and started coming to our games, and created a little buzz around our program as we've continued to get better. And that's the legacy I know she's going to leave. Besides being the all-time leading scorer in Division I and all the accolades that she gets, she's probably the first person that when we got here that young people really started looking up to.
Pretty good comments there after the game from both Heaven Hamling and Jory Collins. In our next segment, you'll hear from NDSU AD Matt Larson about the potential of NDSU keeping its season going with a couple new tournaments, which we'll get to in just a little bit. Also on tap is the NCAA Wrestling Championships in Kansas City. The Bison will be represented there as well. It was a difficult year for Obi Blanca in his first year on the mat, losing 3 dynamic wrestlers into the transfer portal. This time last year, of course, with Jared Franek on his success. He went to Iowa. Michael Caliendo went to Iowa. The 2 guys that were All-Americans last year, tough to replace, but the Bison still were able to send somebody on. Gavin Sachs will be there. There's a chance that Max Peterson will be heading to the NCAA Nationals as well. From this past weekend at the Big 12 Championships, Sachs had a tremendous weekend, got all the way to the championship match before falling in his weight class at 174 pounds. So they each will be heading off to the NCAA Nationals. We'll find out the exact seeding and who they're facing coming up later in the week. As you see, this is from the championship match that Sachs had at the Big 12 tournament this past weekend against Cade DeVos, who's the number 1 seed out of South Dakota State, which he came up on the short end of that one, but his ability to get there stamped his ticket to the NCAA Nationals happening in Kansas City. So congratulations to Gavin, and we'll update that later in the week as the Bison, once again, they were the first, you'll remember, way back in 2007 when the transition happened, to make an NCAA event. It was wrestling, and that tradition continues here all the way in 2024. The NDSU is sending a wrestler off to nationals. We'll break. We come back here on the BMZ. You'll hear from AD Matt Larson about the rise of women's basketball, where things are at, and the potential to play in a postseason tournament. We're back on Bison Media Zone right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Bison Media Zone here on WDAY Extra. Before we wrap, I interviewed AD Matt Larson yesterday before the Summit League Championship game. Asked him on a variety of topics, everything from the rise of women's basketball to the struggles of beating South Dakota State. Here's our interview from yesterday. I remember I got a phone call. You and I were talking 5 years ago when you were in this city about making a change. This, I know, was maybe a lot later than you planned about the goal, but it's here. Tell me about the excitement about this for today.
Well, I think just first off, just seeing the excitement and from out of our players yesterday, to me that tells the story as much. And talking with some alums, we had Holly Huso and Jane Gus were here yesterday, people that have a ton of pride and passion for this program. And I go back to our first conversation with Jory. This is what Jory envisioned us being. And every step of the way, that vision has come to fruition. But he said it in the press conference yesterday, this is not a one-time thing. The goal is not to get here and then have to rebuild. We want to be here every single year, and we have the right guy to do it.
Tell me about however today goes. You and I were visiting yesterday about the added tournament. Is that something that you can, now you got to 21 wins to get some, hey, if we don't make the NCAA tournament, the WBIT is a possibility?
Yeah, I hope so. I think we've put together a really good resume. One of Jory's philosophies is, hey, let's challenge ourselves in the offseason or in the non-conference, and I think we did that this year. And so I'd like to think that we'll get a shot. I mean, we play in one of the best women's leagues in the country, and in terms of RPI and net rankings. And so I'd like to hope that there's an opportunity for us. But I know all eyes are on tonight, though, and I know that's the ultimate goal.
What can today do to boost for you to leap into next season, to get more people in the seats saying, can this be a real starter, or yesterday be a real fire starter for you?
I would hope so. I think my early years here, you always heard about, what the BSA used to be for women's basketball, and I still think there's that same passion in our community. We're giving them something to come out and watch now, and I think this absolutely is a boost in that right direction. Boy, if we can get over the hump today, I think then obviously sky's the limit. But I'd like to think we're going to see some more people down here today, but certainly I think will catapult into next year as well.
For the athletic department, you need just a jolt to, hey, South Dakota State's got to, this would be big for the department as a whole.
Well, I think anytime you get to compete for a championship, that's a big deal, because again, it's not easy. There's a lot of things that go into championship culture and winning a championship, and so I think just in general, this is a huge boost when you can win a championship, especially in a program that historically over the years has been really successful and has had a dip. And now we're back to that level and opportunity to win. And, I go back to that's why we support all of our programs at a high level. The goal is to win a championship. And so this was a huge step in that direction.
So now with the result that we know what happened yesterday, for those that don't understand, and we're still trying to get the ground rules on the WBIT, that is a new 32-team tournament. That bracket will be announced Sunday night. It's fully funded by the NCAA. That's completely different from the WNIT that the Bison women last year, you remember, played Oregon. They had to foot the bill for that, ended up losing by 40 points to a really good Oregon team. They will take, like the men's NIT used to, if you don't win the automatic bid and you're the regular season champion, you automatically go to this tournament. So I was just looking in the mid-majors so far. Most of them have not been played yet. They're actually starting today until Sunday. There's 12 conferences to keep an eye on. Of the ones that have been played, only one didn't win their league that's going to take a bid. That's High Point out of North Carolina. They didn't win the Big South. So 21 wins, a net ranking of around 100. I think it was 105 heading into the day yesterday. They played a really tough schedule. I think there's a chance. It's probably a long shot. If I know anything about the NCAA, they like having their Power 5 teams represented, especially an event that's going to be on television. It's a long shot. I hope the Bison will get at least looked at. It doesn't know if that's a possibility there. Means the WNIT is the other avenue. But again, as we mentioned earlier, that one you have to pay in. I can tell you Oral Roberts and South Dakota are both likely to get into that event. That's a 48-team event that's being played there in the WNIT. That'll do it for the Bison Media Zone for this week. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday.